What's up, everybody? How you doing? First and foremost, thank you so much for all the comments and the messages. It's really been something I'm looking forward to every day in this time of quarantine. So thank you. A bunch of you asked me about the diminished scale and diminished chords and how to use it and apply it. So, you know, the diminished chord. Let's talk about where it comes from, and then we'll talk about how to use it. Cool? So if we take a C major scale, right? We have, if we break it into triads, we have 3 major triads, 3 minor triads, and a diminished triad, right? If we have the first degree, major, 4th degree, F, major, 5th degree is major, right? It all lives here. Then D minor, the 2nd degree, E minor, the 3rd degree, A minor triad, the 6th degree, and then we have B natural, which would be the 7th degree. That's a diminished triad, right? We have a minor 3rd and a flat 5th. Now, if we take those triads and we turn them into 7 chords, meaning 4-note chords, in tertiary harmony, meaning we're building them on thirds, you would add the B natural to the C, making it a C major 7. The F, the 4th degree, would also get an E, because that would be a major 7. Can you see? The G gets an F. What did I say? Yeah, the F gets an E. The G gets an F, because it's one degree up, turning it into a dominant 7. A minor 7. If we stack it straight up, ouchie, it becomes, you know, an A minor 7. And then the B, which was diminished, gets that A and becomes a minor 7 flat 5 chord, which is also known as a half diminished chord. There is a slight difference between a minor 7 flat 5 and a half diminished, but that's a different conversation when it gets into melodic minor harmony and stuff. But for now, let's just leave it as a half diminished chord, because that is technically what that spells out. And then if you take that A and you take it down a half step, you get a fully diminished chord. You get a B diminished 7, and that's where it comes from. Now, the cool thing about this B diminished 7 is that it's fully symmetrical. What does that mean? Okay, if you take this B and you move it up a minor 3rd, you land on D, which is the 2nd note in our chord. If you take this D and move it up a minor 3rd, you get an F. If you take the F, move it up a minor 3rd, you get our A flat, right? That's our chord. And then if you take the A flat up a minor 3rd, you're back to B, our root note. So this chord can just move in cycles up a minor 3rd. What does that really mean? It means that a B diminished is the same thing as a D diminished, same thing as an F, same thing as a A flat, because they're all related. They just, as you move them up with the root, all the other notes just change their purpose, but it's all the same notes. That really means that there are only 3 diminished tonalities. Specifically, if I have the B, which I just played, we have those other 3. If I move it up a half step, I get C, but I also, right, I also get E flat, I get G flat, I get A. If I move that up another half step, I get D flat diminished, but that's, again, also E, G, B flat. It's all those chords. And then if you move that up a half step, I'm up to D natural, but it's the same thing as B. We already played that. So as you move up chromatically, you're really just recycling the same thing. Does that make sense at all? I hope so. This is really cool because you can start making pattern based on the diminished scale that move up in minor thirds, up or down, whatever. I'm sure you've heard this before, like right? right? It's just a pattern that's moving. And then I take that, even if I move down 3 frets, then move down another 3 frets. By the way, I don't recommend doing it this way because you get stuck here, and then it's like, okay, I gotta move up a string, and the fingering get weird. So I think it's a really good idea to practice diminished patterns as much as you can in a box and get weird and sweat it out. They say, you know, the more you sweat in the practice room, the less you bleed on stage. So work all that weird stuff out in your practice rooms, and then you'll be free to do whatever. But there's tons of really cool patterns. I mean, I got this from Kenny Kirkland, who's one of my favorite piano players. Sorry. Wow, sorry. Sometimes when I have to play stuff slow, I can't get it out. Does that happen to you? Like, if you think about what you're actually playing? You know, that's a really cool pattern. Minor third, up a half step, and then another minor third up from the note you started, and then down a minor third, and then up a fourth, and then down a half step. Weird pattern, but it works if you move it down in minor thirds, right? Then I can play it here. Just cool stuff that work over diminished scales. And there are technically 2 diminished scales. I think it's only one because it's, well, you can see, like, if you take the minor thirds, for example, if we go back to that B, and we spell it out, right? B, D, F, A flat, right? The chord we started with. If you want to put a note between those first 2 notes, you have 2 options. You could put a C natural, so it would be B, half step up to C natural, and then a whole step up to D. That gives you the half whole, right? Because it's a half step, then a whole step. Or you can go with C sharp or D flat. So you would play B, C sharp, D natural, which would give you a whole step and then a half step. That's called the whole half diminished, which to me is the primary mode of diminished that I play. You know, usually if you have a diminished chord, like for example, you know, mostly I use diminished chords to connect and to go somewhere else. Like if I'm in A minor, right, and I want to go to D minor, I can go through D flat. I can play A, D flat diminished, D minor. Beautiful. Now, because we spoke about the symmetry, right, I could use, because I'm playing through D flat, I can also use E natural because it's the same chord. So I can go, technically it's just an inversion of the chord, but you can think about it as an E. Same thing with G. I can play, you hear it pulls to the same place. What if I use B flat, the last minor third in that sequence? I can go, you see how they pull? They all pull to that D minor. Or, you know, you can use that diminished chord to modulate, because by the same principle, I can use the D minor to modulate to somewhere the E would pull you, like to an F minor or an F major. I could go, see what I'm saying? I'm using the, then I would go wherever. But you can use diminished chords to really move around. They also like to resolve, or rather not resolve, to another diminished chord. So you can use them very creatively, and it gets very deep into that diminished rabbit hole. But I hope that doesn't confuse. The only time I would use the half whole diminished, so for all those chords I would use the whole half. Like if I played over that D flat going into D minor, I would play, right? I would play over that D flat diminished. But there's one exception. If you take that you take that B diminished that we started with, for example, and let's think about it for 1 second as an F, right? If I put an E against that chord in the bass, it becomes an E7 flat 9. How? Well, if you have an F diminished, right? You have F against that E, which is the flat 9. Then you have A flat or G sharp, and harmonically it's the same note. That would be the third of E, right? Then you have B natural, which is the fifth of E, and D. So you have, sorry, it's a little bit of a stretch, but I'm just playing the chord as it would stack up in minor thirds. You can also play it like, right? But that's technically an E flat 9. Now, E is not part of that sequence, and in this case, a lot of people would play E half whole diminished. They would go E, F, right? G, A flat, instead of thinking it as part of that like F whole half, right? It would be F, G, A. So because the root is technically E, people would play E half whole. Does that make sense? So that's one instance, but it's actually a really cool sound. Like, let me demonstrate. That's a good thing to demonstrate. So if I played, for example, like a lot of those like Jimi Hendrix sharp 9 kind of amps. Right? If you loop that, you can play the bluesy thing against it, right? I can go. Let me lower that a tiny bit. Sorry, let me lower that a tiny bit so you can hear me. If I played, like I said, you can you know, the blues stuff that we all know, or I could play E half whole. Right? That's a totally different sound. I don't know, I think it's a really hip sound. So I hope you're hearing that. It still fits, and it's not that blues thing that we're all used to. That's a very cool use of the diminished, I think, especially if you're playing like with someone who's just maybe not spelling out the chords. Like if it's a bass player and they're just going and it's wide open, you can imply that diminished texture without getting too weird and then having a place that you've gone too far and you can't get back to shore from, you know. Anyway, that's a cool thing about diminished chords, is they can also masquerade as a texture for altered chords, or just even dominant chords, like I said, or a bass line, a bass line. Then aside from that, use them to connect stuff, use them to modulate. It's an amazing resource, and as you get more comfortable with diminished chords, they just kind of take on a life of their own. And if you have more questions or you want to know more stuff about diminished chords, DM me, or you know, if there's another topic, let's go. I'm always happy to share as much as I can. Hope you're well. Bye.